All right, welcome back, everybody, to another amazing episode of AI and Data Mastery. I'm beyond excited for today's guest. But first, I just want to say a quick thank you to our two sponsors, Evolve with AI and Data Accelerator. Appreciate you allowing us to interview today's guest, Matt Banet. Matt is the founder of Haku Technology. And this is a really cool story. It's a bootstrapped, profitable medical device startup doing high stakes work in sleep and respiratory care. His team developed next gen CPAP technology after one of the largest medical device recalls in history. And they're using AI and psychological sensing to turn sleep into actionable health data. So if you really care about where AI meets real world healthcare, this is absolutely an episode that you want to pay full attention to. And without further ado, welcome to the show, Matt. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, let's jump in right in here. I mean, for those that don't know, which honestly I did not before the pre-show happened, can you explain a little bit about what happened with the recall, and then how does a team like yourselves, a relatively small team like yourselves there at Haku Technology, get involved and get trusted with such a high stakes opportunity?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's part of our journey as a company. So, just so you know, Haku is a Hawaiian word that means invention. And like a lot of Hawaiian words, it has multiple meanings, but that's one I latched onto as an inventor. And I guess the way we got this work and our journey, if you will, has been we're a very small team, but we're we're a little bit older, more experienced, and we've solved some problems in the medical device world that were often considered unsolvable, and that those wins were some of the factors that allowed us to get this really interesting and important project with our partner. One of the wins was people have tried to helplessly measure blood pressure for a long time. The idea is to get away from either an indwelling catheter or a constricting cuff that goes around your bicep. And one of the first projects, an earlier incarnation my company worked on, is solving that. We were the first ever company to take that product through the FDA and get FDA clearance. So that was one of those wins that allowed us to have the opportunity to work in the respiratory space. After that, we solved another really previously considered unsolvable problem, which was measuring stroke volume and cardiac output in the home for patients suffering from congestive heart failure and other fluid management type issues. And again, we put our creative hat on, just like we did with the blood pressure project, and developed a really innovative product called the COVID necklace, which looked like a Star Trek type of necklace that the patient would wear on their chest, and they would apply it by themselves, and it made accurate measurements of these important, they're called hemodynamic properties, stroke volume and cardiac output, as opposed to vital signs, which are things like blood pressure and blood oxygen and pulse rate. So we solved that problem too. We got FDA clearance on that product, and those wins, which involved a marriage of really innovative technology and creativity, allowed us to get this important business in the respiratory care space. And we've been working on that for 2 years. And like,
So it's mainly it's a lot of it's just reputation, just going in and finding a problem that everybody else says is unsolvable, impossible to solve it, and then gaining that recognition and reputation within the space kind of opened up doors for you, right? Each problem that you solved kind of opened up different doors or bigger doors or more doors.
yeah, I think that's fair to say. We've developed a good reputation in this space. And also we've proven ourselves with this project and other projects. We pride Haku prides itself on being able to move really fast, uh, doing all the work under one roof, and the engineering side of things, the clinical trials, getting IRB approvals to do those trials, executing a well thought out clinical validation program. I'm a U.S. patent agent, so we generate IP in-house, we file it in-house. We do all the verification, validation testing that's required for medical products, which is extensive. We do all that in-house. And so what we try not to do is farm things out to other consultants. We view our company as a one-stop medical device company in a box that can do everything with this really fast-moving, small, innovative team. So
Gotcha.
that's one factor that's allowed us to, you know, to as you mentioned, stay profitable, bootstrap the company up, not raise a lot of venture capital or really any in our case, which has its own set of problems, as you probably know. We've avoided that up to this point.
Um, gotcha. So so obviously the reputation, the past projects, the past problems that you solved are huge once you get your foot in the door and you're established, you have that connection with that decision maker or group of decision makers, at the company. But how do you get your foot in the door? How do you get in front of those decision makers to even know they have that problem, to find out the details of that problem, to present your solution and present yourself as the best option for the solution they're looking for?
Yeah, that's really the $1 million question is how do you, as a small company that most big companies haven't heard of, how do you get your foot in the door? I guess, the way I see it is it's kind of a combination of reputation and just networking and talking yourself up. And I'm really not good at the latter. It's hard for me to go to conferences with my business cards and hand them out. It's definitely my Achilles heel. And so I think what I try to do is my background is in science. I'm a scientist by trade. I've spent my entire career doing scientific endeavors. The way I find effective finding new customers is just be as honest as possible in assessing the problem that they're trying to solve. I feel like at getting older, I'm not in my 20s anymore, so I've seen every roadblock and pitfall that comes with developing a medical product. And I find that you can't sell anyone on engaging a firm for product development. You just have to rely on your past successes and be able to provide an honest assessment of what you think their issues are going to be, challenges that they're going to face, and and that's been effective for me in landing these contracts. And I think one thing that I found is that in the medical device world, these big companies, they're like the Titanic. And that might be a bad example, but they're like a large ship, and it's hard for
Yeah,
them
they're
to.
the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Yeah, and there's especially in medical devices where there's so much regulation as opposed to an internet company or um, another type of technology company. There's medical devices are so heavily regulated that these large companies, uh, it's often difficult for them to quickly innovate and solve these problems. It's just not what they're good at. Whereas a firm like mine, who has all this expertise under one roof, we're like a little speedboat that can quickly turn and adjust and encounter a problem, fail fast. And
I like that fail fast. That's what I like to.
yeah,
Like
I
from a
mean, look, we
marketing
have
kind of standpoint, it's yeah, fail fast, test fast, fail fast, learn fast, and then move on. And that's really who wins in a lot of cases.
100%. You know, I, I always think that the Edison story, it's probably twisted and contorted at this point, but his position was he didn't really invent the light bulb. He failed at inventing the light bulb 1,000 times and eventually found the right solution. And I think a lot of that is what we deal with on a daily basis, especially when you're doing these complex physiological measurements where you have biology working against you. It's not like we're measuring a semiconductor chip, which I did as my very first startup, where everyone is basically exactly the same. In the medical device world, you can have a person who has the same demographics, the same age, the same gender, same skin tone, same weight, height, but they can be completely different from a physiological perspective. And that is what makes medical device design so complicated, is that biology really does work against you, and you often fail. And I think the best solutions are ones that you try everything, and eventually you'll land on that magic combination that works for a large portion of the population. And I feel like we experience that type of gestalt in product development every time we embark on a new project.
Interesting.
And that, by the way, is where machine learning is really key, right? Because often with these medical products, because the underlying biology is so complex, there's just lots of data coming in. And often that data it's you can't analyze it with a simple linear regression equation. It's just not that simple. And that's what I love about machine learning, is it it assimilates and processes data in a way that humans weren't able to do even 5 years ago. And so I think that's why, one of the many reasons why AI and machine learning has really taken off is, in the medical world, it helps you solve problems that were previously unsolvable. I think that's just a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and solves it for you like in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, you'd have to train. I
Well,
mean,
well,
that's the
yeah,
thing.
obviously, yes, but yes, once it's trained, once the problem is solvable, then it can do it over and over again without, I guess going back to the root problem, doing the all the math and everything else. You had mentioned what you had just mentioned sparked something on the pre-call that our pre-call that I was recalling, where one of your biggest struggles with the CPAP machine that you're developing or helping develop, and forgive me, I forget the exact stage that it's in, but it's taking all of the data as that person is sleeping for the 4, 6, 8, 12 hours, however long they're sleeping for, and processing all that data because there's too much data to send it to the cloud. So part of your struggle was, how do you build in that AI or machine learning component that can process it on site right next to their bed? Did I remember that correctly?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, people often think that machine learning is always done in the cloud, where you have unlimited power and large server.
Exactly. That's kind of bringing it up. There's so many different functions of it, right? Or ways way it's used.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges with machine learning that we've gotten pretty good at is how do you do it local, on the edge. How can you assimilate these large data sets without sending lots and lots of data up to the cloud, where they're processed with Python code running on a server bank that, again, has unlimited power? Often that's not an option. And CPAP is one of those examples where most CPAP machines rely on cellular technology to send data up, not Wi-Fi. So one challenge that we face is, well, how do you do that locally? And it's hard because these products have very profound cost sensitivities. You can't make a product that is essentially a consumer medical product and have it cost thousands of dollars. You've got to be able to design and
Or oh, by the way, you have to pay $50 a month. In addition to your cell phone, you have to pay $50 a month so we can send data up to the cloud to use it, or some additional fee on top of the price tag, right?
yeah, exactly. Patients aren't going to do that,
Exactly.
which is another issue. Healthcare is a battle that we face, and really every medical device company faces, is that patients, especially in the United States, don't pay for their own healthcare. They rely on insurance or other aspects for paying for that. And so they're not going to spend an extra $50 to send these large amounts of data up to the cloud. They just won't do it. And insurance won't cover it. So we have to find ways to do that locally, and with a processor that might cost $5. And therein lies the challenge. And I think, as a firm, Haku has some very, very talented software developers and very, very talented hardware developers, and we've engineered solutions that allow us to do that. to take these large data sets that are collected throughout the night and process them with all kinds of creative algorithms to pull out real information. And it's important too, because especially in the sleep space, we're kind of inundated with these low cost wearables, things like the Apple Watch or the Oura Ring,
Oh,
many
that's
of
right.
which claim to um, to analyze data collected from a patient during sleep, simple data, maybe motion on their wrist or optical sensing of their blood oxygen and their pulse rate from their finger, and translate that data into bona fide sleep stages. Deep sleep, light sleep, REM.
REM sleeper, whatever the trendy word is.
Yeah, but what what we face is that those products they're not used for medical diagnosis, so they're not regulated, and so those companies can really say anything they want about sleep stages, and they're
I was
not
gonna say
required.
they just have to get it kind of close or not even close, or they just have to,
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't even really matter. It's crazy. Most people don't realize this, but I think they see an ad for a watch like form factor that says it's measuring your blood pressure, but in almost all cases, it's not FDA cleared. So it those data can't be used for a medical diagnosis, and because of that, it's not subject to the regulation that a blood pressure, a medical grade blood pressure cuff might be subject to. On our case, we're a medical product, and so the information that we provide has to be vetted with complex clinical validation studies, clinical trials. You have to get FDA approval before you market the product. The FDA is a great organization. They put a lot of scrutiny into analyzing the data, looking at how you did your trial. You have to do crazy stuff that a lot of these other companies don't have to do because they're not formal medical products. We have to do all that stuff, and that's when I look at Haku. That's another thing that has really allowed us to grow as a company and to do good work. Is we're really strong in clinical trials. We have a good background in that area. We've established good relationships with clinical sites. We know how to write protocols, and that's a big part of our business is rapidly doing those trials um, at low cost in a very efficient manner. Yeah, if I
uh,
could share one story. One of the things, not
yeah,
to
please go for it.
one of the just as an example, I think you'll like this is um, our last company where we developed this wearable monitor for heart failure. We had to we had to do a clinical trial. We had to do it relatively quickly and inexpensively, and we needed to monitor I think something like 50 subjects, uh, all of whom had some type of fluid management disease, like heart failure mostly. Lymphedema would be another one. So we're trying to figure out, well, how can we do this without spending millions of dollars because we don't have those types of budgets. How can we do that in a really cost efficient way? And what we did was we established a relationship with a mobile home park, and it was one of the most mobile home parks. You have to be of a certain age to live there, and a lot of these facilities are kind of the same, where they have a central area and they're surrounded by 100 double wides, all of populated by people who are 55 years or older.
You're gonna say 55 or 65 or over?
Yeah, and as you can imagine, these are older patients. A lot of them had these type of comorbidities that lead to fluid management issues. And so we established a relationship with the mobile home park. We set up shop in basically the community room. We posted flyers and sent out uh, emails to all the people who lived in the park, and it was amazing. Within, I would say, a week long period, we probably measured 75 subjects who fell into our intended use population, and we probably did that trial for under $10,000. We compensated them maybe $100. They sat down with us and used the product. We had a comparative device, And that's the type of thing we try to deploy. How do you do things creatively, cost efficiently, um, and avoid the large expense and time and complexity that is kind of the traditional route
Yeah,
for
how
clinical.
do you find a different path to get to the same result, right? There's not always one path. There's not always one way.
100%. And I think when you're an entrepreneur, you never have enough time, you never have enough money. It's just kind of the way it is. And so you're forced to find these creative solutions. And I think over the last couple decades, that's what I've done. This is my fifth startup company, and my brain just works that way. I immediately gravitate towards these types of solutions, and sometimes they're better than others, but that's one thing we try to do at Haku, and I think it's served us pretty well. Our customers are happy, and we get good clinical results. We're good scientists, and that's what we do to get it done.
Nice. Um, just from a fellow business owner, I mean, you had mentioned five startups and now Haku, but you would like, why no VC? Like, what kind of trade-offs, give or plus or minus, like kind of what kind of trade-offs did it create?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, all the other companies I've done have raised some of them are
Okay,
quite big.
gotcha. So I was going to say, because obviously the reputation, the credibility is there. I'm sure you have a great, perspective, so whatever it is to show investors.
I think so, but it's always hard to raise capital, especially right now.
Of
Venture
course.
capital kind of goes in waves where the pendulum swings one direction and a lot of VC money flows into startups, and then they don't get the returns they want, so the pendulum swings the other direction and all the money's locked up. And one thing that I found is that raising capital is not free. And you have to give away a portion of your company. That's one thing, but you also give away control. And you have a board where you're one member of that board, and there's other people sitting on it that might have a different opinion about which direction the company should go. And there's just a lot of strings attached. And like I said, for the previous four companies, we did raise capital. And this one, I just wanted to try doing it without that. And
That's
personally,
awesome.
I like it. Yeah, it gives me the flexibility.
Yeah, I was going to say there's no strings attached, right?
Yeah, and one thing I try to do too is um, there's there's kind of a VC playbook for venture-backed startups, and with that playbook, there's a big reason why people do startups is because they want to get equity and they want to have a piece of the pie and they want their work to have a direct impact on moving the ball every day. That's what I love about it. I can come in and to work and figure something out and really move the needle on our company. It's hard to do in a big company where you're a cog in the machine and progress is pretty slow. And so I love that. But what I've also seen in the past is that employees, especially more junior level employees who might not be founders or VP level, they often have these very, very small percentages of a company. And for big companies like Google or Qualcomm here in San Diego, that small percentage can mean a lot of money, which is great. But often it doesn't. And in my past, I've seen too many junior level employees not really reap the benefits when an exit happens, either a sale, which I've done with my companies, or going public is the thing that most entrepreneurs strive for. And so if you have if you're a venture backed company, you've got all these other people on your board, you're not allowed to give a junior level person 1% of the company. But we do.
Gotcha.
And I like that because um, at my age, I've had some good wins. I'm pretty good, but I want other younger people to do well financially if the company has a good exit and then go on and start other companies. And so
That's
that's one
pretty
thing that's really
remarkable. You're looking out for the next generation of you, basically, right? Like give them some opportunities that possibly you didn't have, help them avoid some mistakes, and then what when you said that, what it reminded me is, obviously staying agile, being able to move quickly, but then that also goes back to the whole benefit of using Haku Technologies and using your company is because you're a smaller company that can remain agile. So, I think you use the comparison, more of that speedboat versus the cruise ship. Cruise ship takes what, 5 miles to make a U-turn. A speedboat can do it in, about 5 feet and whip it around. Um, but yeah, and that's how you want to run your company, whether it's how you pay out your employees or, what decision are we going to make? Who are we going to work with? How much are we going to charge them? All of that stuff. It's, completely, like you said, with no strings attached.
Yeah, I like that because my my overarching philosophy on startups is that it's kind of like a sports team, and we're very similar. We have 12 people at Haku, so kind of like a offense and a foot for a football team. But as part of that team, everyone's
Yeah,
got to do something.
yeah, I was gonna say you could say you got a basketball team there, I guess, right? 5 people on the floor and a few subs.
Yeah, that's probably a better analogy. That's a good one because you take a basketball team, you might have your starting center who's a rock star, and I have that at our company as for a couple people. But you also need that that shooting guard coming off the bench, who might not be a starter, might not
Yeah,
have the
you need
same
you
level
need the
of
role
role.
players too, right?
100%. And everyone has to do a job at a startup. Like you won't succeed. You see it in basketball all the time. The star player for a team will score 40 points and they'll still lose, right? Because the other players aren't being drawn in and contributing. You don't have that deep bench. And that's what I think is really required to make a startup succeed is having that deep bench, having everyone really buy into this team mentality and contribute, even if it's in a small way. Not everyone is going to be the software developer who's a rock star who cranks on code for 24 hours straight, comes up with this really brilliant algorithm. You need all people in the company to contribute, and I love that. I've always played sports my whole life, and I've really adopted that philosophy. And for me, I view myself as it's kind of an old timey reference, but like a player coach, like back in the I don't know 50s or so. Managers for baseball teams used to also play, and they weren't always the best players anymore. There's probably a time in my career where I was one of the better players, but I'm not a young man
Yeah.
anymore.
Now you're batting seventh or eighth, and you're not the
Yeah,
cleanup hitter anymore.
I'm not, but I'm okay with that. My job is to herd the cats and get them going in the right direction. If there's a deficiency, if my someone for whatever reason can't complete a task, or uh, we need a new role that I can draw on experience that I've had in the past. That's how I see my job is first and foremost motivate people so that they know that they have a part of this thing, so that if it succeeds, they're going to make some money. They might be able to do the stuff they want to do. In San Diego, it's hard to buy a house, for example. Like I love the idea of someone who couldn't do that before being able to do it because we have an exit. But then it's getting all those creatives and 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 complex personalities moving in the right direction to help solve a problem. That's at the end of the day, that's one of the main parts of my job now.
Yeah, I'm trying to, while you were saying all this, I was trying to think of what book it was that I read, but they use the analogy of, the company's like a bus and everybody just worries about getting as many people on the bus. How many employees do I have? I need more employees to do this, to do this, to do this. But you, as the leader of an organization, you're driving the bus. But in order for that to work, it's not how many people are on the bus, but it's are the right people on the bus. Because if you have the wrong people on the bus, then the bus isn't going to work. Or it's an analogy, something along those lines. But that's when it made me think about. I mean, you have a 12-person, very efficient team. Like you said, everybody has their roles. You have the star players. You have your bench players. You have your support staff. You have people with different strengths and weaknesses, and your job is to move the pieces around and make sure all of the strengths and weaknesses are, covered within the organization, right?
100%. One of my favorite sayings is 9 women can't make a baby in a month. True, right? Having more people doesn't mean you go faster. Often and I've experienced this firsthand where, and this is yet another reason not to raise venture capital if you can avoid it, is the mindset of a lot of startups is you raise this big bucket of money and you're like, I'm going to build out this team. And before you know it, you have 50, 100 people working for you and you're not profitable, right? Especially in the
And
medical space.
gigantic payroll.
Yeah, you're burning $1 million a month, $2 billion a month. And as the CEO, which is the role I usually take, you're constantly raising money. You close that first round and you're already thinking, okay, I'm going to run out of money in 24 months. So I start the cycle all over again. And before you know it, each one of those investment rounds, they might have different liquidation preferences. They have different terms. And after a couple of those, it becomes almost impossible for the employees to make any money from that venture. There's just
There's
100%
just nothing. There's
turnover.
just nothing left. Everybody's already.
Yeah, and it can be demoralizing. If you're a junior level person and you own a quarter of a point, but you also know that there's 5 rounds of investors that are going to get paid out before me, and some of those might have 3x liquidation preferences. You do the math and you're like, wow, this company has to be $1 billion exit for me to get the capital that I need to do things in my life that are important. And I've lived that, unfortunately, and I just don't want to do it again. I think there's other ways, and that's what we're trying to do at Haku.
Nice. That sounds remarkable. I mean, it sounds like your employees are lucky to be there and work for you, being able to learn from your knowledge and your I don't want to say mistakes, but learn from those past experiences. Hopefully they value that.
Yeah, I should bring
Um,
tell them that because I don't think they think that all the time. It's hard to run a technology company. You do your best, but it's always the people at the end. That's really
It's
the
hard
people
to
are
run
more
any it's
complex
hard to
than
run any business anymore. The expectations of, I guess, just employees nowadays, and I mean, in your space, it's got to be completely different than the spaces I work in. But I mean, even just funny story, real quick. I know we're getting past the 30-minute mark, but I had a friend and a client at one of our companies. He's like, "Yeah, I caught an employee sleeping. My office, office admin. She's supposed to be answering the phone, doing clerical work. I caught her sleeping. I showed her the video of her sleeping and watching TV during the day on her phone. So we moved her into an office with other people and we're like, hey, we need you to do some other stuff. Obviously, you're not busy enough if you're sleeping. And she's like, well, do I get paid more to do this other work? And he's just like, well, no, I'm struggling to find ways to even keep your current job. And she's like, well, if you're not going to pay me more, I quit. And he's just like, I don't even know what to do with that. Like, right? It's just, and again, this is like a lower level clerical job, but it's just that mentality nowadays of employees. It's very difficult to find employees that are truly grateful to have a good company that to work for that looks out for them and is really trying to grow and do cool things or just do wonderful things within the society.
no, it's hard. I think often startups are glamorized by Hollywood and movies, and it seems like the guys are always happy and they're wearing hoodies and shooting Nerf guns, and it's just not like that in the real world.
Yeah, they sold a pipe dream to somebody and raised some money, and yeah, and that's literally what one, and maybe like you said, or like you're referring to, it's not real, it's not reality. One in 100, one in 1,000, one in a million startups, actually, accomplish that. But yeah, everybody saw the movie about Uber and that startup, or some of these other ones, Facebook or whatever movies are out now about these startups, and everybody thinks they're going to be a startup.
Yeah, it's hard. You have to manage people with different backgrounds and different personalities. That's a big part of my job, is securing new business and then trying to keep the people that do the projects associated with that business happy and motivated. Sometimes you're a cheerleader, but you can't be too much of a cheerleader. Sometimes you have to be a disciplinarian, but you can't be too much of a disciplinarian. It's a real balance, actually. And
Yeah, you're trying to be you want to, if you're like me, by personality, you're kind of a pleaser. Like I want to be everybody's friend, but that doesn't work either when you have to
yeah,
be, when you have to kind of discipline and that type of stuff. And, yeah, it's a unique, line that you walk there.
for sure. Yeah, I'm kind of like that. I'm a positive person. You have to because of that, try to be very positive. But that can be problematic too. You can't be everyone's friend because that'll blow up. And you can count on people to work hard and do stuff, but that only lasts for so long too. And so, yeah, it's not easy. If I think you really have to have a lot of fortitude to make these things work. I think there's some stat that like 1 out of 10,000 startups reach the profitability goals that they laid out in their business plan, something like that. It's all the factors are against you. And the thing about startups, I'm probably blathering on here too long, but the thing about startups is you have to have almost every arrow going in your direction for you to be successful. And if one of those arrows, say intellectual property or the ability to measure a certain demographic accurately, if one of those fails, you're probably not going to make it. The odds are stacked against you, and for that reason, it's just really hard, And one of my favorite books, I think I'm getting the title wrong, but it's called "The Hard Thing About Hard Things," and it's written by the the capitalist who was at Andreessen Horowitz, and that's a great book if you're thinking about starting a venture. Is these things are hard; they're not for the faint of heart, and you got to be in it for the long term.
Yeah, honestly, that kind of leads to my last question: is there a book recommendation or podcast that you like to listen to or you recommend so that you must have your ESPN must be working today?
Infamous is the story.
Ah,
It's kind of,
gotcha.
kind of
Yeah, exactly.
really, if you're thinking,
It's a what not to do manual, not how to manual.
yeah, but it's a great book, and there's some good stuff in there.
What was her name again? Sarah. Was it
Elizabeth Holmes,
Elizabeth? There you go.
yeah,
Um,
she started this blood testing company. It's fascinating. That story's
yeah, no,
fascinating.
I followed the story of not in super detail in the news, but I just remember when she like uh like being in even an airport or something and seeing her that she was on the cover of Forbes, youngest female self-made billionaire, whatever her that title was, where everybody was just thought she was the god's gift to business and whatever, and then all of a sudden just watch it come crashing down where it was literally just all what a house of cards. It was kind of crazy, not crazy, sad for sure, but at the same time, it just how does that happen in today's society with checks and balances and investors and scrutiny and everything else? It anyways, not to get down that rabbit hole, but
Yeah, you got to get science. Science is, if Rance Theranos' problem is they sold this vision, but they never really figured out science. And if you look closely at
it
this,
was all just a fancy brochure with a lot of theory, but nothing to actually back it, huh?
yeah, and the board members were people like Henry Kissinger and George Shultz, who were great political leaders, but they weren't scientists, and so they didn't
Again,
have the
fancy
ability.
names on a brochure.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I appreciate the book recommendations, and this has been a phenomenal episode. Really appreciate your insight, sharing it with the audience. I mean, completely bootstrapping Haku Technologies like you've had, how you've gotten in with, been able to get in with the these larger businesses. And, this is what it's all about, especially in the B2B space. There's all kinds of marketing techniques and things that you can use nowadays, but without delivering results, without having that ability or reputation to deliver results, you're obviously, running, or it's an uphill battle, let's just say, right?
Hope we win this one.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time again. We appreciate everybody listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe here on YouTube, on podcast channels, social media, wherever you're listening to this. Please follow, like, subscribe. Matt, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it. I can see the beautiful weather. Are you on a farm or something there? I hear, is that chickens or something I hear in the background? Or some sort of...
They are chickens. Well, they're roosters, I guess. Yeah, in Maui, there's a ton of feral chickens and roosters all over the place because there's no predators here. There's no coyotes or foxes or anything like that. And so, like in my yard right now, I probably have 5 chickens and 1 rooster. And so,
And they just kind of come and go as they please. They're just wild chickens.
yeah, they're free range chickens, I guess. And
Free range chickens. There you go.
they're like the ultimate free range chickens. They can go wherever they want. But one thing I realized too is that roosters don't always crow when the sun comes up. They kind of do it all night long. So if you're going to live in Hawaii, you got to get used to rooster crowing noises. Otherwise, you won't be able to
Either that or really good earplugs.
or get a really aggressive cat.
There you go. Hire a couple, hire a couple, whatever, like you said, cats or little fox or something, and release them around the yard.
Something like that, yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, let's sign off. We appreciate everybody's time. Appreciate your time, Matt. Thank you so much, and take care, everyone. Stay tuned for another episode again soon in a few days.
Thanks for the time.